So, sorry, let's get back into the paint over. Questions at the end of this session, make sure you write at Istebrak. Okay, so right here what you did was you took a screenshot from PortraitStudio and you brought it here, but you were missing some major indicators here. I'm not sure if you decided to go rogue and do your own thing, but outside of this beautiful shape, which you probably took you a lot of courage to duplicate, this must have scared the crap out of you right here. This must have really challenged you. And it must have like been like, oh man, just should I really do this right here? The reason why I know this must have given you a lot of issues is one, you softened it too much. Two, it's completely outside of the structure of the cube of the head, which I'll show in a second. And the other part of this cast shadow isn't there. You softened this completely because you were too afraid to create another massive leap of weirdness and sharpness on a face. Everyone paints portraits like they're supposed to be porcelain. Everyone paints portraits like they're supposed to be this perfectly smooth thing. So as soon as a cast shadow is moved on a face, you guys are scared shitless. You cannot possibly cast a shadow on this face. How dare I remove from the beauty of the perfectness of this face? Well, that's the beauty. I'm here to let you all know, no, a perfectly porcelain, clear, cast shadowless face, blemishless face is not appealing. A face covered in cast shadows, a face partially hidden, a face with under-rendered lips, under-rendered nose, and really high-rendered eyes, a face with a little bit of issue to it and flaw is a beautiful thing. A flawed face is a beautiful thing. And a cast shadow is not a flaw. It is an addition to the beauty. Write that back to me. So you neglected a great deal. And the cube I was talking about is every head is a cube. If you guys don't know this, I'll show you right now. For those who do know, just bear with me. So right here, oopsie, this is that cube. So this is the front. And we're seeing only 1, 2, 3 of the quarters. The fourth quarter is all the way in the back. We don't see it. So this is 3/4 view. And right here is where this cube starts, right along the temple line. That's how I know where to put this edge, just along the temple line of the forehead. But look how far your highlight went. It went so far out. It's supposed to stop just around here, just as it does in the reference. When the model in PortraitStudio will be uploaded, she'll have a little bit more bone structure, a little bit more flaw to her. It won't be so universal. The original model I directed to have a little bit more universality to it, nothing too specific in culture or direction, something very universal. I love the current model, but the new model is just the exact same model, just with a bit more structure to it, bone structure and all that. So right here, as soon as we did this, like if I were just to erase this cast shadow, you really had nothing else going on. This cast shadow was the only thing you had, and you only had half of it. There's a whole other section of it being indicated here by the model. You bought PortraitStudio for a reason. Now use it. Use it properly. Don't be afraid. You spent money getting this, so use it. Don't be afraid of using this cast shadow where it belongs. The root of this nostril is where it starts, right there. Do you see that? Right here. Sorry if I'm zoomed out. I can't really zoom in. The way I paint is zoomed out. It's much better to paint zoomed out than in. This is not really optional. You guys should be doing this too. So right here, we got a little bit of light right here. A cast shadow right there. The chin faces the light just a little bit right there. Don't be afraid to copy this perfectly. Don't be afraid of that. Another thing that you did is the background is way too dark, and the problem with that is you're telling me that there's a cast shadow this sharp, which is in PortraitStudio of course, but you have this really, really dark background. How is the cast shadow how's the background that dark if the light source is that strong? So PortraitStudio gives you control over the background value, but that doesn't mean make it dark as much as you want. Remember that if you're going to make the brightness of the background, brightness of the light source higher, the background should be moving with it. And that's something I'm going to try to implement in PortraitStudio, the newer version, the update, to have the background move with the power of the light source. Okay, so I raised that up. I captured most of these cast shadows, but the nature of a cast shadow is in its sharpness and the gradual shift of that sharpness back to softness as the further the cast shadow moves away. So that's what I'm doing over here. And then we have the fact that right along here, you see all this bounce light coming off her cheek. So you see her cheekbone right here. Beneath that is all this bounce light. I'm going to kind of exaggerate mine just a little bit. Istebrak, when using a reference with a perfect amount of rotation, is it okay to copy exactly and directly from the reference tracing, or should we practice the rotation? You can copy the exact amount of rotation. Yeah, you can copy it. Tracing, remember, there's a healthy kind of tracing and there's an unhealthy kind of tracing. Tracing every detail is bad. Tracing just the general blocks is good. Tracing the blocks and like a kind of low poly head version of the reference, that's fine. That kind of tracing is allowed. You're just using your resource. That's the way I see it. You see the edge of her jaw right here? There isn't enough light to feed that cast shadow. That's something you missed. And you're used to painting the head brighter than the neck, aren't you? But you have a reference here that's telling you they're combined, they're one and the same. So it's like she's wearing a dark turtleneck. And look at the cast shadow right over here. Another cast shadow missed. Okay. Trying to show that all the cast shadows are pretty much following the same vanishing point. So let's take a look at this. This line is parallel to this line, kind of the same, because the chin and the nose stick out in the same way. So they're kind of showing off how the light recedes into the distance. It's not really all the lines. It's not this line parallel with this line and this line. It's just that initial cast shadow coming off of edges or sudden cliffs like the nose or the chin. Another example would be the line of the cast shadow coming off the lip if it stuck out just a little bit further, but it doesn't. So you really just have the nose and the chin. So to trail down or make a more believable cast shadow of a universal light source value, similar to this one, and this one isn't universal, but it's big enough in a room that it behaves universally, you just track down the vanishing point of the line of the nose and the chin cast shadow, especially if the light is on the side. So this one is parallel with this one. Also, I'm not sure why you didn't work with enough space. Like, give yourself some space, lady. I don't know why you feel like you have to just cut it short. You can just give yourself all the space you need. It's a digital media. You can just mess around with the space as much as you need to. So I'm just blurring this out. And the reason why I use a smudge tool for blurring the cast shadow and not the soft brush is because I'm going to have to do cast shadows traditionally as well. So I like to teach myself to blur with my hands, blur with a tool that smudges, smudge, instead of constantly depending on this technique here with the eyedropper tool, which I use just to clean up. I don't use it as a dependently or independence. Never mind. Okay, so I'm just going to clean up this lasso edge here I made with my, I don't know if that was you or me, with my lasso. And what I do when I'm reaching the edges of the study, I just smudge this all out. I don't want in any way to remember that the hairline is like a formation. I make it smudgy to remind me that the hairline is actually really, really smudged out. So this is typically what I do. As for the skin tone, so this is all grayscale, the skin tone should have a little bit more coolness. The only way really to cool without having to directly use purple is just to get the desaturation tool and just cool stuff down in the shadows. But you can't cool everything down, especially the tip of the nose. Imagine you had a red cup and imagine the shadow of that red cup. What would the color be of that shadow of that red cup? So can anyone answer that question? What would the shadow be of that red cup? Another thing that we do in saturation, in skin tone, sorry, is we saturate around the cast shadow with this redness. just like that. So don't be afraid of bringing in all that you need here. I'm not sure if I'm seeing this right, but I feel like you used a photograph and you kind of photo bashed just a little bit. It might be, it would be green, I mean red. It would be red. It would be a red shadow because it's a translucent see-through object that has a color. So because the nose is translucent and has a lot of subsurface scattering happening to it, we get some of that redness in the nostril. Kind of just seep into the pinks here because she's Caucasian and she has a lot of paleness to her skin. Oopsie, 100% is not how you want to do this. Okay. And we throw in some redness in the nostrils first because that's the see-through light coming in. These have a very, very, very high exposure here. And that's the color we bring in right here, thrown onto the nose. So that's exactly what happens, especially with see-through skin, especially with such a strong light source. If you did photo bash, stop doing that. You may not even admit it. But I've been working here for a long time, guys, and I can tell right away if a student has photo bashed. It's just an unusual level of good edges compared to the kind of the lack of edges everywhere else. So be careful with that. You're only fooling yourself when you depend this much on a photograph. Make sure that you're not using this much from a photograph. Then we look at the lashes. You can see that the cast shadow doesn't just travel inside. There's a slight drop from the forehead to the socket, but it's not everywhere. It's a very specific route that the cast shadow is traveling in. Just like that. And you see the brushstroke I just made? That scared me. That gave me trouble. I didn't want to do that. It's so messy and it's just painting over everything. But this is what happens when we don't plan, so this is what we have to do later on. And it's okay because the cast shadow comes first before everything. The cast shadow is the queen of all of this. You see how much better it looks when we actually have a trail here. All right, so see that? It's a beautiful little root. And another problem is that your cast shadow is very flat. So what you want to do is give the cast shadow a shape that takes the shape of the what? What is it taking the shape of? It's a very easy answer. And why do we have to show it here? What is it that we're showing? What's the term for that? I'm just going to make this cylindrical to remind you that the... So this is pretty much how I invite you guys to work with PortraitStudio. This is how much you should be depending on it. You're using it for the light. That's what it's there for. You're using it as an exact example without having to have a model. An exact example of how these shadows happen. So trust it. Trust that it's going to be, this is how it's supposed to be. So the object it falls upon. Thank you, Shaymore. That's what it is. This is the shape of the cheek, the bulbousness of the cheek. Also, the nose is a little bit of a scoop as well. It's not perfectly straight, so we need to show that scoop here as well. Two things. Now I'm just gonna find where that lower eyelid, and as you can see, we're using now, we're representing smaller geometries now. So now we're dealing with the slight little edge work around the eyelids. So you're going to see where you were before and you were so afraid and you just let that one little remnant of the reference here instead of actually depending on it. Please depend on it. Please, you can depend on your reference. This is what this tool is for. This is a tool that we are very privileged to have, because imagine a long time ago when you had to just have a, even nowadays, you had to have a bust, you had to sculpt the bust, you have to cast the light, you have to make sure there's a backdrop behind it, you take the photo or you just sit there. So this is, you know, you have this at your fingertips now, so just use it and depend on it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to sync all of these lines together, making sure that they all have the same kind of just like a route or trail, and just like that. As for the level of exposure everywhere, we look here, the exposure, yeah, the nose does disappear into the cheek. That's fine, but we still have a great deal of cast shadow around the eyebrow, just along here. I feel like you're missing a lot of the eyebrow structure. Female eyebrows tend to have really, really strong arcs. So I'm just going to give her a very strong arc. Doesn't have to be a Cruella de Vil arc. It doesn't have to be an Ursula arc. It can just be something that is a little bit more soft and feminine and womanly. Alright, but be careful. What I see here is very photograph dependent. I'm not sure if you did. What I see here is the nose is very, very well done. But then I see how you fall off with the rotation. Usually an artist who is at this level of rendering has a good hold over their rotations. None of these seem to match. So you might have used a photograph. You might have painted away. You might have done your own thing with it, but do not use a photograph that closely. I'm like that mom you can't lie to, okay? I'm like that mom that is very, very difficult to lie to because I know a mile away that you're coming in with all these stories. And I know when someone uses a photo. Been there, done that. I used to be very, very lazy. Because this is in a translucent surface, because we don't have subsurface scattering turned on, and in PortraitStudio, if you want to get that done, you have to designate what you want as subsurface scattering. So we will also provide with that. So the nose will have subsurface scattering, some of the cheeks, some of the lips will have subsurface scattering, the ears will be very, very translucent, and that will be in the coming update. But here, because we're now dealing with skin and not a stone statue, we have to show that right along here, that the cast shadow gets a little bit of subsurface scattering in it, just along here. But beautiful job on taking this photograph. And for those of you who do have a photography background, who want to get better at their, at their staging, PortraitStudio can help you with that as well. It can help you outside of the studio. You can decide on kinds of light, what they do in a certain setting, and experiment with lighting without even having to turn your camera on. And there's a great deal of photography in portraiture. I've made you guys write that back to me a long time ago. So now I'm copying that trail of this little piece here, and I'm just following the temple line and just making some restrictions. So this is pretty much all I can do at this time. I'm not sure where you're taking the character. I do want to darken the nostrils. I want to darken everything, but it's very high exposure. It's like a Galadriel scene, just soaked in light. Let me sync them. Okay. So before, all the way back here for some reason, it looked more like a patch of white than it looked like a cast shadow. And now we have an explanation of what this is. This is the temple line, and this is the cast shadow of the nose. They're very specific, designated, just remnants of the geometry. I'm going to make a sharper line over here, just as the model tells us. So when the update comes out, as if you have a lower end computer, as you move the model, it'll look messy and dirty. And that's because we didn't allow it to render as it moves. If we allowed that, your computers would all crash. These are all high poly, high detail. So remember that if it looks dirty while you're moving it around, that's normal, that's fine. It's just after you stop moving the picture and you decide on the final screenshot, that's when it will bake a very beautiful high resolution image. So I'm tucking this forehead section in. As you can see, there's an indented concave kind of silhouette over here. Nothing too extreme. The more you do it, the more masculine she'll look, because that accidentally or in reaction makes the brow bone look really big. Okay, so see that it was a bit bulbous before? I recommend going back and sharpening these cast shadows even more with an actual lasso tool, just not allowing any more values to hit a certain area. So just like that, getting the sharpness. Sharpness in cast shadows is detail points, is detailing points. Write that back to me. What does that mean, detailing points? Can anyone answer that question? Blurring away. I'm also going to show how the, well, you made her eyes very hooded. So I'm just going to show how this indentation is visible as the cast shadow travels over this hooded eye. Indents again. Sharpness in cast shadows are detailing points. So what does this, what does that mean? Detailing points means you get a price if you get high enough. If you get enough. The edge makes the detail, and the detail makes the sharpness in cast shadows is detail. Exactly. And what does detail add? What does it mean when we're detailing? Finally, what's the word? It starts with an R. Edge work, yeah. Which means that the painting is almost finished. That's the render. Sharper edges draw the eye. So sharp cast shadows are detail in the sense that they create focus. Exactly. And the completion of a focal point is rendering. Rendering is finishing your focal point. Right, so you still have a lot of edge work to do. There's an edge right along here, but it's just such low resolution. There's an edge right along here that really needs to be exaggerated. I think that you overwashed the values here. You're losing a lot of detail in the second half of the painting. This is the part that is with lots of light, so it should be the part that has the most detail. You're missing an edge for the lower eyelid that I'm just going to represent over here. Another edge over here. You're missing a water line, so I'm just going to choose a pink tone from these and just throw that in. The white of the eyes are way, way too dark. That looks bloodshot. You need to show that this is illuminated. Maybe this far half can be dark because it's the side of the sphere. Shit. Then you have the inner tear ducts and those little pink fleshy parts of the inner eye. Waterline again missing. So you're missing a lot of stuff, but I really hope that you can start trusting your reference a little bit more. Learning to trust your reference like this means when you go to a photograph, which is full color, full human, translucency, subsurface scattering, hair, detail, color, all of that, I think I said color, all of that is going to confuse you even more. So using a model like this helps you break it all down so you have an eye for the basic structure of everything. I think the last thing I would do to fix this would be just, faces are different. Some faces do come in a little bit wider, but I would just fix the wideness, maybe just start hiding a little bit more. Move one side. She kind of looks like she's smirking, so I'll just fix that. So do you see it felt a little bit wide and stretched out? Now it seems to be a little bit more intact. So those are my suggestions for that one. Let's move on to something else. Any questions? Yeah, don't be afraid to create edges. Good job, Trenail. And don't be afraid to trust your reference. It's for telling you something real. And if your brain is telling you, hey, this is all crazy, this is all not going to make any sense if you do it, just don't believe it. Don't believe it. It wants you to paint a perfectly flawless face, and a perfectly flawless face without cast shadows is garbage. Get it and print it out and throw it in the garbage, because that is not what it's about. Light comes first, and the cast shadows that belong to that light come first. Okay, let's talk about this little anomaly right here. It's all like beauty issues and gender issues. So we've got, okay, so there are maps. All right, let's say that there's a map in your brain, and it's titled age map. All right, so you've got villain, villain, you've got protagonist, you've got young, you've got old. I don't even know if this chart works, but I'm just going to just lay down some quick thoughts. Villain that is old. So if you're in here, you cannot have sweet eyes and young eyes. You can't. You're either in between one of these. If you're villain and you're young, you can't have sweet eyes and you can't have old signatures. If you're young and you're a protagonist, you can't have old features and you can't have villain features. If you're a protagonist and you're old, you have to have sweet eyes. You can't have evil eyebrows that are young eyebrows right over here, so they are young. And you have to have sweet everything else, and you have to make sure that it is only old. It's not young. At no point is young in between old and protagonist. No, it's on completely opposite sides. So it's either you're traveling in straight lines, you can't skip across the map. You have to either travel in straight lines or not move anything. You can have the typical villain, which is the typical trope. So think all of those basic villains, and then just think about their age, and you can see they do not have young protagonist features. But here, evil eyebrows, sweet big eyes, downturned boy eye corners with perfectly triangular female beauty standards. Then you've got female and male in there. I don't know how I'm going to include female and male in there. I guess it's like an overlay of another map on top of this one. Then you've got perfectly masculine features, and then you've got these like old, here, let me get my red marker so I can just scar you for life. I am using it. Why aren't you letting me use it? Oh, it's because I'm an eraser, duh. And then you've got these age signatures right here. I just don't know what to do. And then you've got this super strong bone structure that makes them look like it. But then you've got these massive eyes that are so apart from each other. And the lips, even though they have this terrible, you know, high age laugh line that's in resting mode. Like if you have laugh lines in resting mode, you're old. I'm so sorry. I love you, but you're old. As for it being like a transgender, I'm not talking about that. I'm not even going to go into that. You're an artist. Your scapegoat can't always be it's transgender. How dare you, you transgender phobe, evil, what's the fucking word for it? You bigot, okay? You guys can't just throw the bigot beanbag at me every time I tell you, hey, it's either male or female, and that's it. Just stick to that. You're a student. You have no business experimenting with this biological stuff. You're just going to end up making something look uncanny and then be really pissed off that it doesn't work. Okay, so that's the problem here. If, let's say, you were painting a super weird Xerxes type of guy. So let's take a look at Xerxes. He's exactly this. He's like this uncanny, super, like this homoerotic, super vain asshole. And he has this exact setup here right now on his face. Big eyes, laugh lines, strange eyebrow arcs. It just reminded me of Xerxes, right? Look at that chin. It's like the exact same face. He looks a lot more cute because he seems like it's a girl with like a prosthetic kind of like chin makeup for like a movie. I feel like you wanted to, this artist here, I really don't feel like there's some sort of evil genius Xerxes type of deal. I'm not going to give the student the credit. I'm going to say that the student was really experimentational here. The student wanted to experiment a great deal, and they were just having fun. Okay, so, sorry guys, 1 second. Sorry guys. So what we want to do to correct this is choose one. What is going on here? Which one is it? Is it going to be old and villain? Is it going to be young villain? Is it going to be a young protagonist, or is it going to be a protagonist that is old? And then just decide from there. If it's going to be a young protagonist or a young villain, this is all gone. All right, let's say we get rid of that. That's pretty much all we needed to take care of that. But if you wanted it to be a woman, you're gonna have to decide, you know, we need to raise these corners of the eyes up so it can be a complete woman. If it's going to be a complete woman, we can't give her these bodybuilder.com, I smoothie and do shakes every day and I have 8 raw eggs in the morning jawline. We also can't give them these jowls, these wrinkles here. You got to tuck in the forehead. You have these strange little bumps on the forehead. You gotta take care of these eyebrows. Even on a female, these eyebrows are way too strong. And then I'll show you another level, another layer, how to keep it male. And I'm not sure if I can show you all the outcomes, but I'm also gonna not give them that I'm old and I've seen things, natural resting bitch face frown. So you did it all, man. You gave it all. Look at how strong this is. It looks like a very beautiful inmate. And I'm just going to just smoothen that out. And look at this value sharing. Whoever this is, let's just beat them up right here. Where are you? Come to the front of the class. Where's my meter stick? Where is my meter stick? Antares, did you hide it? Alright, so I'm cleaning this up. Look at this value share. I am going to smack you. Value sharing is a taboo. If you repeat it in my sessions, in any of the class, this is my natural reaction. Alright, and then you got these like darker lips that I'm not sure what to do with. This is what happens, and you want to know what I think? I think you had one of those art book head templates, and you were just using it. So I'm just softening all these bumps and bruises here. And you were using it, and this is pretty much what happened after you used it. You had a male template that was way too structured and Herculean and Michelangelo, and you just tried to paint a woman out of it. Or you had only painted women for so long and finally decided to paint a man, but all you had were big eyes in your visual library, and then it was just a result. And then you thought, hey man, maybe I can just include some laugh lines just to fuck with Istebrak even more. I'm not a dominatrix. Do not talk about your teacher that way. Alright, so I'm just going to complete this so it doesn't look masculine, and then we'll go the other route. We'll get the old copy. She still looks like a very masculine bodybuilder woman, but at least she's a woman now. I'm not going to adjust it too much, but at least it's a woman now. Very, very strong testosterone. I take testosterone and lift, and I'm a trainer on the Biggest Loser type woman. Okay, then we have the original. So let's make it old male. We made it protagonist female. She looks like she leads the resistance. She doesn't take anybody's shit, but she's very beautiful. If she ever put a dress on, she'd probably knock everybody out. Then we have the other side of that. So old antagonist. All right, so we get rid of that because we don't want him to look like a female. We flatten the eyebrow. Old male protagonist. Antagonist, sorry. I'm going to shrink the eyes. Whoa. Well, that's big eyes right there. Whoa. 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 Okay. I'm going to enlarge the nose to be wider than the inner part of the eyes. His eyes are still very beautiful is the problem. But there's only so much I can do in an hour. So whoever you are, come to the class. Come to the front of the class, please. And just take it like a woman. Alright, then I'm going to increase the distance between the nose and the mouth, which is something you had as well. There's so many features, it's hard to just put them all into one session. Old means that they've got a really, really saggy jowl and cheek area. Saggy ears. The eyes are so beautiful still, no? Because that's all you've drawn for the longest time. Just beautiful League of Legends eyes. I'm going to give the jaw some strength, widen the mouth, and it'll explain a lot of this. The eyes just seem like they've got all this mascara. It's like a man with makeup on. So what I'm going to do is just ease up on all of that. I'm going to and villain, what does villain mean? Can anyone tell me what the units of a villain are? The units of villainhood. I've talked about this in the villain challenge, our most educational challenge, I think. So I'm getting rid of those lights under the eyebrows. They're behaving way too much like, you know, like the transvestite makeup. Not transvestite. What is it? When they dress up as men, as women, but they're like straight men. Is it transvestite? No. I keep forgetting the name of the term for it. It's very specific. It's not transvestite. Turn it into Bruce Willis. Okay. So, villains look sick. Exactly. So what are the units of illness? What are they? What are those? Skeletal face. Excellent. So first of all, I am going to get rid of those big, beautiful eyes. I'm going to make them smaller. Smaller pupil. Smaller iris, I mean. You can't have those big, beautiful eyes on a relatively evil character or old character. And then we've got the sag of the eye. So he's old, remember. Old and male and evil. But you mixed it all. You went all out. I admire your ambition, but remember that there is a lesson in every choice we make. And there's no shame in what we do, as long as we're learning. I don't want him to look worried, so I'm going to lower the entire eyebrow area. I might have to mute in a little bit. There's like a little crisis going on around me. Alright, so evil just means there's an expression in evil, but I gotta take care. So the skull face, what does the skull face mean? It means that a lot of the whites of the eyes are hidden. And it means that we've got dark circles. Also, age has these dark circles. I'm just bringing these in radially. So this was an educational class for you. I mean, all my classes I hope are educational. But for you specifically, day 3. Okay. Cast shadow's a little bit dark. And then I'm going to just thin out the lips to be thin and mousy and evil, whispering in the king's ear, giving him advice that he shouldn't give him, which leads to the demise of the king, like Richard IV or Richard III, I think. 1 second, please. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Alright, so evil, mousy, and then the expression, the almighty expression. So I wanted to start neutral, but I want to actually let me get the new face. And then before the liquefy, and then liquefy, and then do the eyebrows. And then 1/2 smile. Maybe a squinty eye that I will bring in a second. And the squinty eyes is doing this. Okay. Just like that. And that's as much as I can do for old and evil. I see him as some sort of evil advisor to the king or something like that. But I hope this shows you how all over the map you were. It was a buffet for you. And it should have been the opposite of that. He looks like an ex-war general as well. He still has these really defined eyebrow arcs right here that I really want to correct. Men's eyebrows are flat, 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 flat. Google it. Don't Google why are men's eyebrows. Just Google image. And if he's old, he's got these little pieces right here. You can make one eyebrow a little bit more, you know, like curious and pervy. Okay. Before. 1. And then 2. You were all over the place. So it was like exertion and then release. Okay, so please remember this map. It is very, very important. Do not fuck with this map. You fuck with this map, you fuck with human anatomy. And when we have faces that look like this, let's Google it. Let's go in there and take a look at how uncanny it is. Old but young mugshot. I don't know where it is. There we go. I don't even know if these are real. I really don't know. They seem real. It's hard to tell. This is just this guy. But there's this one. There's all these like really, really scary ones. Where is it? There's one that's like super, super weird. I think it's photoshopped. I think this one is photoshopped as well. But they're like, it's uncanny. The equivalent of this, and I think it's photoshopped. The equivalent of this is of what we do here. The equivalent of it is here, even this current piece right now. So this looks young. It doesn't look old, but there are really, really scary ones that they have to be photoshopped. I can't find them, but they were on Imager as this one collective post. It was really, really unsettling. And the word for it, technical word, the design word for it is uncanny. And that's what happens when you fuck with the rules. And finally, we have this piece. A little bit more refreshing. No more talk about faces. Now we're just going to talk about staging. So let's say you've got like this canal and you're a photographer or a cinematographer, or you're not cinematographer, you're a director, and you want to set up some really, really beautiful shots. So you've got 1, 2, and then this is like this, the decrease in sizes, everything is just pointing to this location. This is all just doing this. What looks more interesting? This or this? What looks more interesting? How about this and some of that? This definitely looks more interesting, and this is how you want to plan out your lines of sight. Even if you're not using some sort of golden ratio, you want to just go rogue, it's okay to go rogue. It's okay to not follow any specific scheme. Just as long as you find the lines of sight. So how do we do this? How do we interrupt this one straight line always traveling in this direction? Well, we'll just cast some shadows off these little rocks and change the location of the light source. Does the light source have to be at the end of this tunnel? Why is it so required that the light source does this? All you need is just a little bit of a boost for the composition, so you can have some perpendicular lines. So what you end up having is this on darken? Well, you end up having our perpendicular lines to each other. And so you end up having straight lines. And what we need to do, because the light's going to be on the other side, is show how that cast shadow travels up along all of these rocks. But we have like illuminations on all the rocks. So the rocks are facing the light source now. So now we have something interrupting all of this madness in the opposite direction. And we have something a little bit more intriguing to look at. So we have things traveling in the opposite direction. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, honestly. I don't think I have the brush to do this fast enough. But we just want to make things travel in an upward direction. And then we have some lights on one side, which breaks the symmetry. Everything is so boring when it's symmetrical. Symmetrical equals boring. Write that back to me. So to have both of these facing the same direction, it's just going to be really boring. So you want stuff that constantly breaks the direction of movement. So let me see if I can do this a little better. I'm just going to try to throw in some random rock texture. And then again on this side, just trying to show the relief point between these pillars here and how the light can reach it. And showing the route that this is traveling in. Getting rid of this annoying light. Never have the sun in your scene. Write that back to me. If you can avoid it, don't have the sun in your scene, please. And at the end of the day, this is all still a tunnel, and you're just meeting me with this mound, this like mound that looks like someone underneath their covers who has a cold. Give me something a little bit more geometric, more interesting. Give me something mad. Give me something crazy. Maybe like a ship saucer just crashed into the side of a mountain or something like that. Just something weird, something fun. Maybe a weird rocky balancer thing. It's all leading to this point. Why is there nothing for us to look at the end of this? Just a funny little soft mound? How is that? Why is that hill so important that it deserves all of this staging? So what you want to do is change the light source. Get it off the screen. Get it out of there. The sun is a hog. It's going to hog all of the focal point. You want to get rid of it. And then you want to just work in grayscale for a little bit until you manage and get a good hold over all your values. And getting a good hold over your values is also getting good shapes and making sure you're experimenting with shapes without the punishment of color. Also there, slowing you down. And then we can really mess with the, these are rocks. These are very long, soft rocks that seem to be very, very reflective. So you can bring in that crazy amount of bounce light in there. And specular like that really mirror-like massive amount of contrast. Just there to boost the focal point, the root of the focal point. And then some of these rocks might just have another little mountain nearby that's casting a shadow. Maybe this cast shadow off this map, off this mountain is casting something off nearby it. So when you have a top-down light source coming from right or left, especially if it's the sun and a landscape, you have real cast shadows that travel, which are really pretty to look at. They dress up the painting. So we want to interrupt this constant flow backward, this like perfect tunnel, and it's just so boring. I mean, who paints a tunnel just for the sake of the tunnel? There has to be something that where the tunnel is going to, or there has to be something that, oh my god, I nearly lost my my work. There has to be something that is on the path of the tunnel. So the tunnel is pointing to something or something on the tunnel. And what's on the tunnel could be this little building right here, which really falls into the side. If it's supposed to be this building, first of all, give it some size. Yeah, you'll lose some scale, but that's fine. So give it some real size. If it's supposed to be some sort of like alien base, make it a little bit more beat up. And then give it some of that, just like that foreground contrast. So you're not always looking at this stupid thing in the back that was just nothing but a mound. And now you're expected a gradient in the background because the sun is top down. So sun is top down, so you might be getting more darkness on one half. And again, we broke the symmetry one more time and made everything that much more intriguing. And that's what we do when we are painting a landscape. We are breaking the symmetry. We are making things look more interesting. I don't think that this background color here is right for this object here, but that's helping a little bit more with the mood of the painting. Then we can bring in that intense white from the background to boost the rest. Okay, so that looks really interesting now. And imagine if this building was half in, half out of a cast shadow. Isn't that wonderful? Wouldn't that be great if it was just half in, half out? It's going to look like some sort of Star Wars concept art. And that's really what they're using. They're just looking for complementary tones. They're looking for anything complementary. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? No, I've been posting my classes like almost right away. The same day. Let me see if I can... Oops. Let me see if I can select... Motherfucker. Let me see if I can select this. Text. Alright. I'll just darken this fellow over here. Alright. So that's what we're deciding on when we're thinking about this landscape when we're working in thumbnails. That's what these are the decisions that we're making. Okay, so let me just darken this piece one more time and show that relief point between these two pillars. They kind of look organic now. And what you want to do, this is another way to kind of throw off the symmetry. You don't want to make them look organic. You want to make them look geometric compared to all the organic landscape around. That's what we do in a painting of a landscape. We complement organic with geometric. Write that back to me. And everything is a form study. This little piece, this little guy, he's got some light on him, and the cast shadow on this is the little piece here, and this little guy here has some light, and we're going crazy. We're giving everything some kind of light, some kind of shadow, and this pretty cast shadow over here, I haven't smudged it, is just traveling. Maybe, heck, what am I saying? This whole thing is a cast shadow as well. Just like that. And of course it gets smudged out. Cast shadows are fuzzy, especially if a cast shadow falls on a micro detailed terrain kind of deal. That really messes with you know, with the sharpness of a cast shadow. Alright, so through some of that, and then you can have a little bit of glare here or something like that. It's kind of getting too dark around this area. I might just lighten that. Sorry about the mess. Complement organic with geometric. Excellent. So get organic with these. Get organic with the rocks, with the terrain here. If you feel like, hey, this is starting to look like a tree house, you want to know what you do? You make a massive pine tree. What is this pine tree doing? Can anyone tell me what this pine tree is doing? What are these trees that are supposed to be colossal compared to us? What are they doing for the painting? What's the term for it? There's a very specific term. It's a design term. Scale. Good job, Kira. Scale. So we're using an object that we're familiar with, which is a massive tree, and we're saying, hey, holy shit, the tree is this big. If it's only this small, and this thing must be like a freaking like a massive. It must be colossal. It must be a behemoth, this thing right here. All right. So good job on dark to light. I think you didn't do enough for the root, the line of sight. There wasn't really much happening on that. And what we did was we added more. I think I went too dark over here, but that's okay. We really do need the gradient. But what we do when we're having trouble figuring stuff out, we forget about color. Okay, we gotta forget about color. We gotta say, adios color, see you later. I'll visit you in a couple months once I make sure that I am 100% where I want to be with my value control, with my edge control, with my contrast, with my staging. And that's just, see, I'm trying to make some cast shadows here. That's just flippity fluck, what is it? Oh my God, landscapes. That's just landscapes. You know, separate texture from, you know, like fabric color texture, see-through fabric color texture, leather color texture, and then texture, sorry, skin and color and texture. That's a whole other ballgame of color you have to deal with. Color on landscapes is very different, very opaque, very concrete, very reflective, and that's just a whole other ballgame. So yeah, watch out for all of this in your work. You don't really need color. All it's doing is getting in your way. It is beautiful. Color is a beautiful, wonderful, sparkly, gemmy type of thing. But if you're having trouble, this much trouble, and you have to deal with color, I feel like it'll only slow you down. So that's it for today. I hope all these paint overs helped you guys see a little bit more, you know, behind what it really means, what the workflow is. That's why I kind of try to stretch out the paint over as long as possible. There's a workflow. Let me just delete some of these that I'm not very proud of. I do not buy from Coach. I do not. Damn it! Damn it! So go to istebrak.com. And click on the little Google Plus icon to join our community. Upload your work here. This is where I go for work to, where I go to collect work for the paint over. For the last time today, I promise PortraitStudio is on sale. It is on sale for you guys, and if you guys want to pick it up, I do want to encourage you to at this time, if you're interested in it, of course. The sale will stop on the 23rd. And that'll be about it for a long time. I'm so sorry for those who missed this sale. That's why I'm trying to make sure everyone knows about it. I did not use Pirate Bay, okay? That wasn't me. My brother used my computer. Anyway, is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. Did you guys have any questions? Let me just look over the questions really quickly. Oh yeah, but by the way, Tom and Taris, I'm not sure if Izam is here, but for the critique hour, for the challenge, this year's, this month's challenge right over here on the 31st, are you guys interested in coming on call with me and critiquing based on creativity, just seeing how we can boost the creativity of the submission? So I'll choose a bunch of submissions, I'll go on Discord with you guys, and we will discuss the paintings as I choose them, and we'll discuss what goes on in there. So how do you guys like that idea? It might not just be my mods. It will probably be my mods only, but it might not just be the mods. I'll try to bring in some other voice to help me critique. So it's not, again, I'm not an authority on creativity, which is why I want to bring in other minds into it and help work together to create something magical out of each critique. And keep adding and adding to it and taking away stuff that makes it look a little more boring. So this whole challenge is about maximizing your creativity and learning to think with your mind open. And the best way to do that is to just listen to everyone's opinion and see how everyone's perspective kind of combines. Yeah, awesome, great. As long as you guys aren't shy of having your voices on the stream. I do this all the time. I promise it's not weird to just sit there and talk. We'll just be talking as if we're just chilling. And it'll go on the recording, though. It'll go on my channel. So yeah, if you haven't joined the challenge, please join it. PortraitStudio is on sale, and I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Have a great day, guys. What's the currency? I think US dollars. How long should one work in black and white? I didn't even answer questions. God damn. How long should one work in black and white? As long as possible. It's a very complicated question. What's your pattern? Nothing. Let me see. There are not any questions. There are not any questions. Bad question, but how is Istebrak's history so long? Oh, you just gotta go to Edit, Preferences, General, Performance, and raise this history states all the way up to 1,000. We can't draw sexy lumberjack dudes with beautiful eyes. How do we know where to put masculine, feminine qualities? It's the trope. There are borders around the trope. An eye can't be too big. Once it gets big enough, it'll start to look like half of a female's trope. It's just with experimentation. You fuck with the map, you fuck with Istebrak. I don't like to fuck with Istebrak. Men's eyebrows are flat, 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 flat. Yes. You made the right choice, Your Majesty. Exactly. Let me see some more. Mrs. Doubtfire. Yep. Okay, but that's it. How do we check if we see if our values are appropriate, correct in an environment? Well, you set up your closest value, which is your foreground, and then out of that, use it as a reference. As long as things are not as dark as the foreground and midground, and not as light as the background and midground, you're pretty much prepared. Do you think sketching architecture outside is useful? Yeah, definitely. It'll build your instinct for perspective. Your visual instinct for perspective. Good idea, but not that skilled enough to critique another one. My English is not that good. Well, it's not so much critiquing the skill or the fundamentals. It's more critiquing based on creativity. Oh, you know, you went for a sword here, but you could have just gone for a banana. Type deal. So that's what I'm going to be looking into. Not that my mods are not versed in fundamentals. I'm sure they're very versed. But yeah, it's the point is creativity and combining our thoughts together and keeping it open-minded and whimsical and madness. But that's it for today. I'm sorry I'm in such a rush. I will let you guys go. See you later, everyone. I will see you guys on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye.